Well, good morning. Welcome to Moving Well. This morning we're going to be doing a breathing lesson. So when you think of good breathing or breathing well, what comes to mind? What do you think of?
Deep,
Slow.
deep, slow.
So you're talking about the inhaling?
Maybe a pause in between.
If you're breathing, I think efficiently, you're using your diaphragm, which means that your belly will be involved too, although there's no lungs in your belly, at least there shouldn't be. So.
No, but have you noticed, okay, well, right now, just take a slow, what you consider a deep breath, and feel in yourself where you feel the impact of inhaling.
Lungs to your stomach, right?
I've gotten into the habit of when I'm thinking about my breathing first in my belly and then making sure that my lungs expand also, so I can feel it in my ribs. So it's becoming more of a habit. Not all the time, but most of the time.
Okay, the point I'm looking to get at is that we know that our lungs only go to about here, inside our rib cage, but yet when we inhale, we feel it in more parts of ourselves. We usually feel it deeper, and if we only feel it here, we know that what would be stopping it from expanding further.
Holding our stomach in.
That is definitely a big contributor. And that goes along with, what do I talk about all the time?
Oh. Stick your tummy out. Stick your tummy out.
And why? Because we're looking at all of those chronic muscular contractions that we hold. So, so today we are going to be doing a breathing lesson that addresses all of that. So, as usual, you want to go slow and you want to be paying attention and letting yourself be curious and let yourself get really interested in noticing the little changes, the subtlety. Because when we get to paying attention at finer and smaller levels, it wakes up our brain. And if we are moving slow, paying attention slow, being gentle, being small, it kind of perks up the brain. It's like, oh, she's really paying attention. This must be important. So that's the point that I want to stress for today, is really look for a whole nother level of subtlety. Okay? All right, go ahead and lay on your back. And when you discover another one of those more subtleties, let yourself get a little excited about it. You don't have to jump up and down or whoop and holler, but let yourself get a little excited inside. So, scan the way you're lying now, your contact with the floor. Feel the way the back of your legs are in relation to the floor, the back of your pelvis. And then follow from your tailbone up through the middle of your pelvis, and then begin to go vertebra by vertebra up your low back area, your mid-back area, in between your shoulder blades, and your neck, all the way to the base of your head. And when you get to the top, go ahead and scan back down and pay attention to, see if you can get a sense of the shape of the vertebra. We know that the ribs are attached at the sides of the vertebra, that there are the two projections on each side of the vertebra. And there's also a projection facing the back behind us. But just at your own pace, slowly scan down your spine and continue right down through your sacrum to your tailbone. And do it slowly. And just go back up and back down one more time. And just notice, does the vertebra seem any clearer in your image than it has in past lessons, past times that we've been scanning? And just pay attention if it's even just a little bit clearer or not. And notice where in yourself is it a little bit clearer. Which parts of your spine are clearer? And then also imagine, visualize your sternum, your breastbone. From the notch at the top, if you want to use one of your fingers, just put your finger in that notch at the top of your sternum. Get a sense of that. And then just let yourself scan down the length of your sternum all the way to the other end where it has kind of a pointy top. So if you put your hand down at the bottom, you'll feel just a little bit of a pointy bone there. And it's a narrow bone. And just feel with your fingers along your sternum. Get just a little more friendly and familiar with your sternum. How there's the bone in the middle, it's a narrow bone, and then on the sides you feel where the ribs start attaching. And then can you sense behind yourself where the ribs are attaching to your spine? How they attach behind to your spine and then they curve around to the front. And you get a feeling sense of the ribs on the side. We don't think about them too often unless they were in some kind of pain or discomfort, or you're trying to do a Feldenkrais move that's not going so well. Because it is the rib cage that gets stiff and locked up that inhibits a lot of easy movement. So now shift your attention to your shoulder blades, your scapula on the behind there. And our ribs are attached to the shoulders, to your collarbones. And now, can you visualize your diaphragm in the upper abdominal cavity? And of course, breathing in and out may give you a little more sense of it, of where it is. And just put your attention on your breathing. Listen to your breathing for a moment or two. And just take time to notice, what is your breathing like right now? We pay attention now so that we can notice if there are any changes. And now go ahead and bend your knees and stand your feet. And now begin exhaling. Exhale through your nose and count internally to yourself about the rate of a second. And just see how far you count when you finish exhaling. Is that clear what I'm wanting you to do? Okay. So just do that a few times as you're just breathing normally. And just see what your number is now. And do it a few times and see if it changes. And do it half a dozen times just so that you have a rough idea and a sense of the length of your exhalation at this time. Because that gives our brain the contrast, remember? And we want to pay more and more attention to the subtleties. Because the more subtle we are and the more curious we let ourselves get, it literally wakes up more in our brain. Okay, now I want you to do the same thing, paying attention to your exhaling, only this time make a sound as you're exhaling. And just pay attention and count. You're very quiet hummers, which is okay. You're humming for you. And now just notice, does it make any difference in the length of time, the higher number that you count to when you're humming? Mm-hmm. Okay, anybody else notice a difference? Is it higher when you're humming or a little bit? Yeah. Yeah, we're not looking for enormous changes at this stage of the game. Okay, so now what I'm asking you to do is just breathe. And when you exhale, pull your belly in powerfully. In other words, use your muscle. I'm not usually telling you to do things powerfully, but this time I am. So as you exhale, you pull your belly in. And just do this several times. And notice what you do when you do it powerfully and quickly.
Pull your belly in when you're inhaling, right?
Pardon?
Pull your belly in when you're inhaling?
Right now you are. You just, yeah, you are.
Pull in, when you inhale.
Okay, what I want you to do is breathe, and when you exhale, pull your belly in powerfully. So when you're letting the air go, you're bringing your belly in. And then just let that go, lengthen your legs and rest. And as always, look for any subtle little changes. And then bend your knees again, stand your feet. And again, just breathe. And when you exhale, pull your belly in powerfully. Again, several times. And notice that if you're doing it very powerfully and quickly through your nose, does it seem like you don't need to inhale? Or is it more like there's a spontaneous inhale? Just do that several times, paying attention to when you exhale powerfully, and let that go. Play with that, exhaling powerfully and paying attention to what happens then with your inhale. Does it seem like you have to put conscious effort into it, or it happens spontaneously? Just notice what you're noticing right now at the beginning. So you exhale by pulling your belly in very powerfully. And inhale. This is probably the one and only time I've ever asked you to do something powerfully. Powerfully and quickly. Yeah. Just this time. You want to bend your knees. Are you uncomfortable bending your knees? If you're uncomfortable, we can do something about that. And just do that several times. In doing this, we're actually waking up parts of your brain that may never have been awake. So you exhale, 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 pulling your belly in. And notice, is there any tension happening in your neck? Your neck and shoulder, okay. So try not to tighten. Intentionally let that area relax and soften up on let your jaw be soft. Let there be space between your teeth. So as we're doing this, pay attention to what's going on in the background, like your neck and your jaw. And we always want to make an adjustment and intentionally let that area soften up. And now leave it alone, lengthen your legs, and just breathe. And just notice what you notice. Just quietly pay attention. And notice, does it feel like the length of the exhalation has inhalation, not insulation, inhalation and exhalation. Does it seem like they're more even, or is one happening for a longer length of time than the other? And pay attention also is noticing if there's beginning to be some easing in the breathing, some lightening in the breathing. And if you notice the opposite, that means we need to make an adjustment. So if that's happening, let me know. Okay, again, bend your knees. And again, do that same thing. Bend your knees, and again, exhale very powerfully, pulling your belly in. Pulling your belly in powerfully. You don't have to exhale so powerfully, but you want to pull the belly in powerfully and quickly. And then just pay attention to what happens for the inhale. So you exhale, powerfully pushing the belly out, pulling the belly in. So you exhale, pulling your belly in, powerfully and quickly. And notice, does inhaling begin to just kind of happen spontaneously? Or maybe you don't even notice that you inhale. So what happens is that the diaphragm goes up, and then as the diaphragm goes down again, it literally pulls air in. But it's really quick that happens. And really well-organized breathing, for instance, in athletes and public speakers and singers. This is how really good singers have to breathe in order to have the volume, the air behind the volume. This is how breathing happens when breathing is well organized, when we're engaging the diaphragm as it's designed to be used. So your exhalation is a lot longer than your inhalation. Inhalation happens quickly when the diaphragm is working powerfully the way it's designed to use. And then let that go. Lengthen your legs and rest for a moment. And situations like wheezing and with asthmatics, what's going on is the breathing is really disorganized. This lesson is actually designed to move you toward more efficient breathing and therefore more efficient use of yourself, more efficient use of your diaphragm. Our diaphragm and our voice and our vocal cords are really in, what would I call it, an intimate relationship. They need to be functioning in harmony. And so this lesson is designed to bring in some harmony. So go ahead and bend your knees again. Stand your feet. Again, about hip width apart. And now this time, put your hands on your abdomen, so that your lower abdomen, so that your fingertips are like right down at your pubic bone, just where the muscles attach to the pubic bone. And now you're going to exhale, pushing your belly out. Push your belly out and down in the direction of between your legs. Imagine that you're pushing it towards the floor of your pelvis. So you exhale, pushing your belly out and down. So you're using your muscles. You're using your abdominal muscles. And ideally, your back should stay flat. Your back should not be arching. And so if you think more of directing the force towards your pelvic floor and thinking of your back staying flat, so when you think of your of pushing it out and down towards your pelvic floor, can you feel that more of your back presses into the floor to help counter that tendency to arch the back? Not allowing the back to arch is a constraint that helps us focus the muscles to function in the precise way that we want them to. Actually, for most people, the diaphragm doesn't work fully when we breathe. So in this lesson, we're going to try to get more of the diaphragm to work the way it's designed to work. And then just go ahead, let that go. Slowly lengthen your legs and rest. And notice, is your back beginning to lie flatter on the floor? Do you feel your breath going deeper in your torso? And go ahead, bend your knees, stand your feet. Okay, now this time, this might be a little bit challenging, but just do it as best you can. One time, exhale by pulling the belly in. And then the next time, exhale by pushing the belly out. Of course, there's going to have to be some inhaling in there, but you're alternating. One time, exhaling, pushing the belly out, and then the next time, exhale by pulling the belly in. Again, put your hands on your lower belly and feel what is happening there. You can start out doing this very slow. And remember not to arch your back. Think of your back staying flat on the floor. When we arch our back, it actually interferes with the diaphragm being able to move. The diaphragm is designed to pull down so that it creates a vacuum in the chest cavity, which allows the lungs to pull air in. Remember, no pelvic tilt. The pelvis just stays motionless. This is all our abdominal muscles that we're working. when we're switching how we're doing it right now, it's a higher level of having to organize, so you're challenging your brain a little bit more. Yes. You can let yourself slow down. See, the organization for good breathing has to happen in our brain first, and then in our diaphragm, and then it'll show up in our breathing. The whole focus is exhaling, exhaling, exhaling. We don't even have to worry about inhaling. If we exhale efficiently, the inhale is spontaneous and automatic. Make sure you do it without any rocking in the pelvis. Keeping that back on the floor. So what we're doing here by doing all these variations is to try to bring an automatic regulation of our breathing that leads to much better functioning. So we're interrupting some of our habitual chronic holdings. And then leave that alone. Slowly lengthen your legs and rest. Are you noticing any change in your contact? In your breathing? One of the amazing things with this work and why the work is so effective is that we begin to get improvement in the outcome long before we're able to do the actual action really well. So we don't need perfection for better outcomes. We need attention. The more we pay attention, the organization begins to happen in our brain, which makes it a lot easier. Boy, I am really, excuse me. Yeah, I think you're right. It seems to get progressively more so. Okay, go ahead. Bend your knees, stand your feet. Now, do the same thing, only softer and slower. You can do it so soft and so slow that you're imagining even.
We're still pushing our belly down when we exhale.
Yes,
That is true.
that's true. The intention of this work is to rewire us, to make the changes in our brain so that the newer, more comfortable, more efficient movements become automatic. Do it a little more gentle and in slow motion. Once we get these muscles working smoother and easier, it's also going to make a difference in the muscles of our low back and of our neck. We'll find those, you'll probably find those things freeing up as well. And when those muscles, the muscles that you're working on are tight, they interfere with the action of breathing, and then also the muscles of, excuse me, of our neck and our back. They also interfere with our breathing. We don't often think of them, though that isn't usually what we think of when we feel tightness in our neck and our back and stuff, but it actually does impact our breathing. So what we're freeing now are the muscles that have been interfering with the action of breathing. And we do it by improving our ability to exhale. It's through the physiology of exhaling that the breathing is regulated, and it's not the inhalation. I know a lot of breathing classes focus on deep breathing, but it's a little backwards because the physical action is done in exhaling, and the inhalation becomes pretty much spontaneous when these muscles are functioning properly. So you have to become good exhalers. Once we're good exhalers, the air will just automatically come back in, and we don't have to worry about it. So let that go. Stop, rest, lengthen your legs. What stands out in your attention now? What has changed?
My lower back is getting my attention.
In what way? Is there discomfort, or is there?
Uncomfortable at this point.
Okay. When you say you're having some discomfort now, when you're doing the breathing, is your back arching? No? Okay. Then I would encourage you to go to imagining and just really doing the breathing slow. Use less muscular effort, and imagine the breath going towards the floor of your pelvis. Okay, let's do a variation. Roll onto your left side with your knees bent. And be sure you have something under your head so that your head's not hanging too low. And stand your right hand on the floor in front of your chest. Bend your elbow so your hand is on the floor in front of your chest. And now exhale again, do it really gently. We don't have to do big and forcefully. Exhale, pulling your belly in. And notice how you allow the inhalation. So you exhale through your nose. And you can exhale powerfully in your imagination. And in doing so, that can kind of clue you into any extra muscular effort you put in when you're not doing it in your imagination. Does that make sense? Take time to imagine. Now, is it any easier because you're laying on your side?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It's harder for you?
My nose is slowly,
Pardon?
my nose is slowly closing up here. It's like
Oh, that's, yeah, it's the, maybe do a little less nose breathing. The lesson asks us to breathe through our nose, but if, if it's causing allergies, then let's not. So as you're doing this very gently, pay attention to your lower back. Does your lower back tend to move backwards when you pull your belly in and exhale? And let all of these moves be really gentle. Let your imagination be vivid and powerful. What side of your abdomen do you feel works more powerfully? Which ribs do you feel more movement in? So you could touch your belly with your right hand, your lower belly, and see if you can feel that one side of your belly works more powerfully than the other. Just because of the position you're in. Just notice. And then just stop and rest on your side for a moment and just scan, pay attention, and notice as you're breathing. Do you feel any more movement in your rib cage, especially the ribs that are closest to your pelvis? For most people, because we're standing, those ribs don't usually move, those lower ribs, as part of inhalation and exhalation. So when there begins to be more movement in the lower rib cage, it makes a big difference in our breathing capacity. And often when we're thinking of our breathing or focusing on our breathing, we pay more attention to our inhalation than our exhalation. And we don't necessarily pay attention to our rib cage all the way around us. Our ribs are behind us, beside us, and in front of us. So there's the potential for expansion in all directions when we inhale. So as you're laying there now, just imagine as you're breathing, and you don't have to breathe forcefully, just inhale intentionally, thinking of your torso inflating, your ribs expanding all around. The ribs on the side, the ribs in the back, the ribs in the front. Kind of imagine like your whole torso is a big balloon that can expand. That there can be muscular freedom that allows that kind of movement. And now begin to alternate. Once exhale, pulling your belly in. And then try exhaling as you're pushing your belly out. And then let that go, lie on your back and rest. I'm kind of going through a process of experimenting with all these different variations. And then just observing. That's all we have to do. We just do the variations, and then our brain does the work if we're paying attention. And now roll onto your other side. And take a few moments just to observe what you are experiencing now. What do you notice when you inhale and when you exhale? Do you notice any increased movement in your ribs? Any increased movement in the ribs that are closer to your pelvis? Remember, these are the ones that, because we're standing, we're in the upright position so much, these are the ribs that don't tend to have as much movement, as much flexibility. But you can get a sense, since these are the lowest ribs, that how important it is to allow the muscular contraction. When we have the muscles able to relax and expand there, that allows the diaphragm to come down and draw more air in. Have you ever seen a really good picture of the diaphragm? It has so many attachments. So our breathing and our dysfunctional breathing has a huge impact on in many ways. So now again, begin to And then just begin to breathe gently and easily, but imagine the expansion. And then a few times exhale, gradually pulling your belly in. And then leave that alone, roll on your back and rest. And just one more time, bend your knees, stand your feet. And just gradually begin to slowly exhale, pushing your belly out and down and humming. And count. Slowly count. So you're exhaling through your nose, pushing your belly out, and count just in an even rate. You're going to do some comparing. So as long as you keep your rate the same, it'll work. And now this time as you exhale, pulling your belly in, count again and then remember that number. And then lengthen your legs and rest for a moment. And then again, bend your knees, stand your feet. And now, this time, you're going to count at the same, pretty much the same rate again. I have you pull your belly in or push it out. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, now this time you're going to gradually pull your belly in and count and hum. And do this several times. Just noting the number that you count as you're and then pause and take note of the number on this side. And notice, was it higher or lower when you were exhaling? How many of you counted higher when you were exhaling? How many counted higher when you inhaled? pretty much. Okay. Take time to feel, notice any changes. And when you first laid down, one last time, bend your knees, stand your feet. And this time, you're going to slowly inhale, and again, push your belly out and down as you exhale. And pay attention to what happens after you exhale. So you're forcefully exhaling, pushing your belly out and down, and then just letting whatever happen. Do you feel the air kind of spontaneously coming in? Is the inhalation pretty spontaneous? And where do you feel your breath going when you breathe this way? Does it feel like you have more space in your torso? Are there any more ribs moving? And what, if so, what direction do you feel the ribs moving? Are they expanding side to side, front to back? Do you feel an expansion from top to bottom? Just notice what is different, if anything. And then when you're ready, go ahead and take a few moments to imagine how you're going to roll to your side and come to standing, and include how are you going to be breathing? Are you going to be inhaling or exhaling as you find your way to standing? Yeah. Oh, you've been doing some deep breathing, so that allows even our blood vessels to expand. All that breathing will clear out the lungs too. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you for joining us today. Not only do we invite you to keep on moving well, but keep on breathing well. And then you'll definitely be moving better. All right.